I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Wednesday.
Sort of sounds like he cursed at us, doesn't it?
Glad to have you all with us. 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now proudly, there's the button. And now proudly on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
This is where you hear both sides. We are the Jeff and Bill Show. Great show for you today. We'll give you the latest on what's happening with Savannah Guthrie. Good night. Those pictures are terrifying. We'll get into what they released yesterday, the latest, what happened overnight. We're also going to talk with folks about the ice walkouts that are happening in schools. I posted a video, Mr. Thorpe, of an ice walkout at Campus Middle School, Cherry Creek High School.
Yeah.
And it has generated thousands of views,
Really?
71,000 views so far, and a lot of debate, hundreds of comments.
Nice.
And people all fired up. Is this the role of teachers? Are they teaching good patriotic engagement? Or are they just leftist activists weaponizing kids against the Trump administration? Debates back and forth on that. We'll get into that in the 7 o'clock hour. We're going to talk with Turning Point down at Adams State University. The president there, their chapter denied by a public university. Fascinating. So we'll talk with the kids there. And then the New York Times with the retraction of all retractions, in my mind, the hold on, wait a minute, we made a mistake on marijuana retraction, which back in 2014, I was fighting these stupid opinion pieces that were coming out about how marijuana was going to cure cancer and pave our streets with gold with all the tax revenue we were going to get. Now people are like, oh, wow, yeah, there's a lot of people using this. We'll get into that. So want you to be a part of the conversation. Feel free to jump in by giving us a call at 303-696-1971 or texting us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now it's time for the news.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. Hump Day, Wednesday, 25 and partly cloudy in Denver, 24 in the Springs. Expecting highs in the upper 50s today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, a man who was detained by Arizona authorities for the alleged kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie, says that he had no idea who she was. This morning, he was released and told reporters it was the first time he had heard of Guthrie. So the mystery continues. The DJT administration is planning to cut about $600 million in public health grants to 4 Democratic-led states, including Colorado. HHS says the funding is inconsistent with agency priorities affecting programs like one at the Colorado Health Network that supports Black and Latino gay men. These grants, administered through the CDC, help states hire staff, manage outbreaks, and update data systems. Governor Polis says the state hasn't received any official notices yet and is committed to working with federal government to protect public health programs. All right, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick testified before the Senate, the Appropriations Committee, about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein after he led people to believe he cut off any contact with him in 2005. Problem is, he took his family to the island in 2012.
I did have lunch with him as I was out going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. I had another couple they were there as well with their children, and we had lunch on the island. That is true, for an hour, and we left with all of my children, with my nannies and my wife, all together. We were on family vacation. We were not apart. To suggest there was anything untoward about that in 2012, I don't recall why we did it.
Man, I don't either, dude. DJT needs to let him go. I mean, my God. There's an email where he gives all the ages of his kids to Epstein. I don't think I would do that after I knew how guilty Epstein was. This is like 4 years later. Oh, my God. One of the worst, if not the most horrific of the Epstein files. Epstein wrote in an email to someone that a little girl said that she knows Jesus watches over her, and he helped save her life. Then he writes the word whoops on the email. The reply from the person, which is redacted, was, quote, "You should dress up as him when you see her," end of quote. End of quote. Just absolutely sickening and incomprehensible. Absolutely. Satanic, reveals just everything this thing is all about. All right, a grand jury has declined to indict Colorado's Jason Crow and a coalition of Democratic lawmakers over that illegal orders video last year.
U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, pursued the indictment after the lawmakers urged military service members to defy illegal orders in a joint video statement. The video was in response to the Trump administration carrying out deadly boat strikes in the Caribbean. The lawmakers included Senators Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And 10 people are dead after a school shooting in British Columbia on Tuesday.
The death toll includes a suspect who was found with a self-inflicted injury. 6 people were found dead at a high school, while another died on the way to the hospital. 2 other bodies were found at a residence that's believed to be linked to the shooting. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And a 144-unit affordable housing project under construction in the Springs near North Carefree Circle and Peterson Road is drawing concerns about traffic and pedestrian safety. Michelle Bork lives in the area, says she's considering moving because she was almost killed at the intersection after being struck by a driver on the crosswalk.
Increasing accidents along Powers Boulevard and the amount of increasing accidents along North Carefree and all the other arm roads, that'll be enough to drive me away from here.
Bork was among many neighbors who fought for the flats at Sand Creek development before it was approved by City Council last summer. According to city data, the intersection has seen 23 crashes since 2022 and worry about increased vehicle trips near Sand Creek High School. This is going to be a crazy, wild day, wacky, wild Wednesday. The Grizzlies at the Nuggets tonight, NBA action downtown. Tip it off at 7 o'clock. 24 in the Springs, 25 in Denver. More of the Jeff and Bill Show ahead on News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver, and now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer in Colorado Springs along the Front Range. This is the Jeff and Bill Show. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
As Pacific moisture gets deeper and increases across Colorado, good news for skiers in the snowpack. Over the course of the days ahead, we're going to finally see snow returning to Colorado's mountains, especially along and just west of the Continental Divide. For Front Range areas from Denver to Colorado Springs, there's not going to be a lot of weather in this pattern change, but a little bit. Expect a lot of clouds today. Temperatures mainly in the 50s with 30s tonight, staying in the 50s for Thursday, and a little cooler, low to mid-50s Friday. Still well above average for February. But for tomorrow night and Friday, there will be a few rain and snow showers along the Front Range. Snow shower activity closer you get to the foothills. Then there's a bit of a break in the weather with 50s and lower 60s for the weekend through President's Day Monday. Trending cooler, bit more active by the middle to the end of next week. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
This is where you hear both sides. We are the Jeff and Bill Show. All right, lots of developing news overnight with Savannah Guthrie's missing mom. Here's the New York Post. Bombshell new pictures and video showing Nancy Guthrie's alleged kidnapper outside her house were released by authorities on Tuesday, and a man was briefly detained overnight in connection to the 84-year-old's disappearance. The Arizona man identified himself as a delivery driver named Carlos and expressed his frustration after authorities held him in connection with the alleged kidnapping. He was released after several hours. There was a series of stills and 2 videos that showed an armed individual wearing a ski mask, gloves, a zipped jacket, and a backpack outside the front door of the 84-year-old woman's Tucson, Arizona home. Bill, did you see the videos and the pictures? And
yeah, it seemed like the person kind of knew what they were doing, sort of thing.
That's right. Yeah, what did you think of that?
Again, I wanted to, kind of curious why it took so long to get it. I guess there are some technological issues behind the scenes. And I think it's important because it, one, gives people sort of an idea about, we had some armchair detectiving going on, and at least now it focuses some of that work in an area. I think that it is very interesting that the person obviously showed up prepared to gain access to the house and to not be identified. So this is something that they had thought about and knew some of the security, which then means you got to ask the question as to why. What were they looking for? Were they just doing this? And it sort of lends itself to the ransom demand idea that this person knew what they were doing and were going inside. And because it doesn't seem to make any sense if you're not taking her as an asset. Doesn't make any sense that you're just doing this as far as random crime, that you're just trying to kill her. And then why would you do it and take the body outside of the residence? Because that is possibly other evidence that could be used later on to convict you. So it's weird to move the body if you're looking to kill her. But given how prepared this person seemed to be, again, I'm not saying a professional, but they at least had thought about it and had some plans, knew about Ring doorbell cameras, and took pains to not be identified. How did they mess up the ransom note so badly then? How did they not figure that one out? So again, it becomes 2 different stories that we see at least a modicum of planning at the front end and what seems like very little planning on the back end. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, yesterday I said that I thought that it was probably somebody involved in the family because that's typically how it happens.
Yeah.
Boy, at this point, it seems like I was wrong. Unless somebody in the family orchestrated this type of kidnapping, which I guess is still possible. But those are terrifying pictures.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
The dude is so serious and on a mission that this wasn't just kind of haphazardly. They stumbled upon a woman. It just seems like they knew exactly where the camera was. They went after the camera. This thing was all planned out.
Yeah.
All you can see are eyes. And apparently it was the eyes. The guy that was Carlos that was detained was blaming a family member for calling the FBI to give a tip because they thought they had similar eyes.
Yeah, and that's why you need those visuals, is because you have that type of recognition. It was Kaczynski's brother-in-law that caught him based on some of those descriptions, some of the writings.
Right,
the
writings. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
and
so
then the guy's got a little mustache and all this stuff. So, and it just looks. You imagine elderly people having to deal with that type of guy. Not good. But then again, right now, we only know there's one guy. So, there's. I guess if they disabled the Ring camera, you wouldn't be able to figure out if there, a van pulled up and other guys jumped out later. But here's why it took so long for the FBI to get the Nest camera footage of Nancy Guthrie. This is the New York Post. That the long-awaited release of the horrifying break-in footage has to do with the fact that Guthrie wasn't paying for a Google Home subscription, which would have stored her Nest feed even if the physical camera was removed. It costs $10 a month or $100 a year for the base service that saves video triggered by movements or events for 30 days. John Day told the Post, he's an expert, it gives you some insight into what Google is capable of, even without a paid subscription. There's a way to go to some data center, spend a lot of time and effort to try to find that particular camera at that particular time without a subscription. So this is, 10 days later, they've got to dig through, find the right camera, go back and find the data, even though she wasn't necessarily paying for it. But, good word of advice, probably pay for the little subscription so you can track the video, and it won't take them so long to do that. Other breaking news was activity in the Bitcoin account. The Bitcoin account associated with Nancy Guthrie's expired ransom began to show activity on Tuesday evening. About $152 worth of Bitcoin appeared in the account's publicly viewable logs, with the funds arriving after a single transaction was made. That cash value came from 0.0022 Bitcoin deposited in the account. It remains unclear where the money came from. Anybody who obtained a copy of the ransom note would have been able to wire funds to it.
Yeah. And are they putting money in? Is it a test to make sure it's working? Who knows? Who knows what's going on?
Some college guys having a beer saying, hey, send $152 to Nancy Guthrie's Bitcoin account. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And who is it who's doing it? And this also shows that, yes, whilst currently the government has difficulty getting the money out of the Bitcoin wallet, they can track it. They can absolutely track it. And so that's part of it as well. And I wonder, the fact that they've released that information, does the potential kidnapper and or scammers that may be involved, either, one, both, more, many, does that change their tactics? Do they now go, oh, wait, now we can't do X, Y, or Z?
Well, would love to hear what you all think is happening. If you remember yesterday, I believe it was, who was it that called in with regards to this? Might be the beginning of a bunch of new ransom type of activity similar to ransomware that takes place out there. Anyways, one of the callers called in and laid out that theory, and I think he might be right, that this might be the beginning of kind of personal ransomware. And the reason I bring that up is in part because of the images look like this was done professionally. At least there was a plan to do this. But I'm also intrigued by whom the ransomware people target, right? They don't necessarily go after the biggest names out there. They sometimes go after like local hospitals or local schools. Regis University got hit with ransomware during their registration process, and they just had to pay to deal with that, to open it back up so their students could register again. That sometimes the best way to get money is not necessarily to go after the biggest fish in the pond, because you're sitting there going, Nancy Guthrie's or Savannah Guthrie's mom. Savannah Guthrie's mom. Like, on whose radar was she that this was going to be somebody you could target for ransom? So it's like it's like just big enough, right, to get the entire nation's attention, but not so big that she's going to have 24-hour security. It's not like trying to kidnap, the vice president of the United States or something like that. So big enough to get the attention of the nation, not big enough that you have to deal with any security. So could this be, the beginning of a whole new type of crime movement that we have in this country?
I don't know, because it doesn't seem like this. Is it getting them to the ends they desire? If the Guthries within 48 hours paid out and she came back, now you've got something. But the fact that it's been going on for so long, I can't figure out that this then would be the next trend. And this is just on a side note. I'm surprised that it is still this omnipresent necessarily in some of the news cycles. And this is why I'm surprised. And this sounds awful, but I'm surprised because it is an NBC Today Show anchor. And in every other day of the week, the Savannah Guthrie and NBC and the Today Show are pilloried as those horrible communist socialists that are trying to tear down the American culture and our way of life, and it's their fault, and they're part of the mainstream media that is just supposed to be part of the Democrat arm that is changing our country, and that's why Biden won and Trump really won 2022, and I can continue for just minutes on the screed. But now she's a person with a family, with real feelings and real loss. I find it fascinating that we've gone from these large scale labels over based on where she is and who she works for. She's a traitor and tearing apart the fabric of America, to now we treat her with compassion and empathy. I just have found that fascinating in a turn in our media ecosystem and the coverage.
Well, I think it's in part because that's the difference between conservatives and progressives.
What do you mean?
So conservatives can absolutely and rightfully critique about political agendas being driven in media, but still also recognize the humanity of somebody involved with that. So if a tragedy befalls them, they'll go, "Oh, it's terrible, terrible." Look at the way the left treated Charlie Kirk. You know, I get comments on my social media all the time. Rest in piss, Kirk.
Yeah, although I mean,
so
to be fair, we had a lot of FAFO comments about Good and Peretti shooting. So there is some callousness on the loss of life on both sides that absolutely exists.
I disagree with that.
No,
I
it
think
absolutely
it's
exists.
way worse on the left.
No, it absolutely exists on
worse.
both sides.
Just because you may get a handful of people on one side doesn't mean that they're equally vicious against their political opponents.
You had people that celebrated when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked. I mean, it happens on both sides, and that's part of it. The thing for me is that
you just gave me a big example about how people are like, wow, Nancy Guthrie's part of the liberal mainstream media. Yeah. Now they're all concerned about her. And I'm telling you why that happened.
Yeah.
And then you go and say, well, they're violent on both sides.
No, but your excuse is, well, we have more humanity. And what I'm pointing out is maybe the labels and the stereotypes and saying that she's there to tear down America isn't necessarily as appropriate.
Who's saying that?
That it's all okay.
I see a general critique of liberal media, which is right because no one trusts it anymore. Where's the Savannah Guthrie is destroying America effort?
It's the idea that she's part of NBC and the machine, and that's the idea is all of a sudden inside the machine, this person becomes a human. I find that interesting. When outside of it, they are these horrible people that are trying to tear down America, but now we get to treat her as a person. I find that interesting. And I find that fascinating on both sides when they do it, when they have to confront their stereotypes based on the individual. I think that's fascinating. I think it's really interesting and a little instructive on how we use these large-scale labels to ignore and basically discount what other people are saying. But when it comes down to brass tacks, we're all human. And that it does show that maybe some of the things that we say are closer to hyperbole than what we actually believe.
Join the conversation. Jump in 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Marvin, the meat handler. Conservatives are full-time victims. All right, Marvin, how many progressives in Colorado have had to fight their way to the U.S. Supreme Court multiple times just to be able to run their business? I don't know, Marvin. I can think of now 3 Christian conservatives in Colorado that have had to go before the U.S. Supreme Court in order to get a decision that allows them to run their businesses according to their faith. So, no. Feel free to prove me wrong. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Let's talk Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests that you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who've been hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. We'll continue. More to come. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS in Denver.
And AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. This is where you hear both sides. We are The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show, where both sides are heard. Let's jump to the phone lines. Rod in Littleton's joining us. We're discussing Savannah Guthrie's missing mom and the latest developments overnight, the videos released, the Bitcoin activity. What do you think's happening? Rod Littleton, good morning, Rod. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, gents. You know, you're talking about Billy was talking about the left, us despising the politics of the left or the people on the left, and now we're showing compassion. Generally, and I want to be specific because it's not everybody on every party, but generally, Republicans can separate the politics from the humanity. If we can dislike somebody for their politics, I dislike leftists and liberals because of their policies. But if something bad happens to them, the humanity takes over, and I feel for them. The good and pretty thing, that's different. That's not in the same ballpark. They put themselves into an action, right or wrong. That is not the same as somebody's being killed or like Savannah Guthrie's mom or Charlie Kirk. That was an assassination. The left just wants bad stuff to happen to conservatives and Republicans. And you see that every day. You see these people, they celebrate when something happens to a conservative. When Trump, the first of both assassination attempts, why did he miss? And the hatred runs. They don't care about humanity. They just hate. And I don't see that as much from the Republicans. I'm not going to say there aren't people on the right that feel the same way, but in general, we can separate the politics, their political beliefs, from the humanity.
Yeah, I can see the point, Rod, and I appreciate it. The comment that I was making is that in many times, commentary on both sides is an act to dehumanize and generalize about your opponent in order to ignore their positions or what they're saying. Even our own president has said that NBC are a bunch of traitors. We've heard before that members of the media should be rounded up and maybe put in jail. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Savannah in general. I'm talking about the overarching approach that both sides have to their political and ideological opponents and how we run to a form of dehumanizing and debasing them. And then when we are confronted about the actual humanity of that person, we take a different tact. I think that's fantastic. But during the previous run-up, and not this election, the 2020 election, I heard about, maybe we need to round up and we need to start arresting people that are Democrats. We had people talking about we need to go around and arresting people that administer our elections because things didn't happen properly. There are all sorts of things in which we assume that the other people are X. And then when something horrible happens to them, we have to treat them as a human. I'm just saying that it's an interesting moment, and maybe inside our society, we should not be so quick to denigrate our opponents with those type of stereotypes. That's basically my point.
But what I'm saying is the politics is one thing, the humanity is something different. We separate that. Yes, I agree. We come down on each other on the politics. I have seen more crud coming about, Republicans need to lose the right to vote because they voted for Trump. That's been going on for a long time. It's getting worse. But when tragedy happens to somebody, the politics is gone and the humanity comes out. That's my point. I agree with you. We all, Trump does make his comments, and most of the time I agree with him because the way that the leftist media puts stuff out in there as news, they're not giving the truth. I wish that news organizations would be fair and balanced and talk about the truth and keep their politics out of it, and they don't. So yes, that brings them right for being criticized because they're not putting out the whole story.
Well,
Right?
I think that a lot of people do that on both sides, not necessarily
I do,
putting out
I
the whole
agree.
story. That they and I hate to I hate to do it, but yeah, I'm going to do it. Going back to things like the Good and the Preddy shootings, the statements we heard from the administration were completely and totally false. I mean, you can't go back to their original statements and then view the videos and think that they were telling the truth. And those statements, in my mind, were done that way in order to demonize the people that were their political and ideological opponents on the other side.
Do you guys, though, see, like, for instance, Trump, let's use Trump. Trump will go to the mat against Mamdani, for instance, or criticize the media. But then you see this unique pivot, to Rod's point, where he'll invite Mamdani in and they'll have a fine conversation and kind of laugh and joke with each other. With regards to Nancy Guthrie, Trump going, you have the full weight of the federal government at your disposal. We're here to help you, that type of stuff. Do you see, or do you have moments that popped to your mind where Biden, for instance, was able to cross the threshold with his political opponents in support of helping them at that moment? Are there things that pop out in your mind when that happened?
Not that I can come up with right away, but I'm certain that we could come up with stuff. Yeah, because I guess Biden for me wasn't the one that spent the time. If you look at how Biden described his political opponents, it's nowhere close to the way and the methods that Trump uses. So that's the thing, is I think it's somewhat of a false equivalency. Did Biden do the same thing? Yeah, I'm sure he reached out across the aisle. Nothing pops up in my mind at this point, but it doesn't mean, one, it didn't happen, nor does it say that one side does it and the other doesn't. I don't know.
Let's add this little point. The vast majority of news coverage involving Trump is negative. The vast majority of news coverage during Biden was positive. Trump has come out and done something that I appreciate, because it's frustrated me through a lot of Republican administrations. They don't punch back. Trump punches back. So, yes, people get mad and take it wrong or whatever, but he's not willing to sit back and keep taking the punches. He's hitting back with his opinions and the facts that he has. I think that weighs into that too. But getting back to what we've been talking about, I think the vast majority of Republicans separate the political from the humanity. And I don't see that coming from the left, the Democrats.
Right.
Yeah.
Rod,
I appreciate
the call.
that. I disagree with the perception, but I understand.
Rod from Littleton's line will be open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Let's talk Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. What can bring everybody together? Well, good home-cooked food, right? Black Eyed Pea of Colorado, locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. My whole family loves this restaurant. All 3 generations. Yours will too. Now with 9 locations. There's sure to be one near you. They recently opened up in Fort Collins. You can visit them at 807 East Harmony Road. This is the restaurant you want to take the whole family out to. The Black Eyed Pea, home-style cooking worth going out for. They make everything from scratch: slow-cooked pot roast and meatloaf, chicken fried steak and chicken tenderloins, grilled salmon, and grilled and fried shrimp. They've got daily specials and senior discounts. What are your plans for Valentine's Day? Guys, they don't take reservations, so if you skipped out on the opportunity to get a reservation, well, this is a great option for you. And they have delicious chocolate cake, which your wife, girlfriend, spouse will love. You can bet that the Black Eyed Pea has what you're hungry for. The Black Eyed Pea also does catering. Your dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event will be a success when you look to the Black Eyed Pea. I'm telling you, I love everything about this restaurant. Support local, keep it in Colorado, and visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. BlackEyedPeaColorado.com. That's BlackEyedPeaColorado.com. All right, Bill, does this give you hope that Nancy Guthrie's still alive?
The longer she goes without medication, no. It's not because I have a mother in her 80s, and I know how difficult it gets physically and physiologically when the medication isn't there. And there can be some really serious consequences. There were some things that my mom had to stop taking and adjust before she went through her recent knee surgery. And some of them weren't something that you'd look at as far as major medications that are something that would change you physiologically if you missed it for a couple of days. But she went post-surgery. There was one that they didn't restart right away. And about 6 days afterwards, she started feeling some of the effects and realizing what it was. And the doctor's like, okay, we got to get you back on that one. And that was a small level type of medication that was just balancing some things internally in her system. And if that was the kind of effect that she was feeling based on that medication, if Savannah Guthrie's mom is on anything more severe and we're this far out with no medication, it's really awful. This could get really, really bad. And what is the condition that she's going to be in at this point worries me.
Yeah, you're exactly right without that medication. I am intrigued, though, because originally I thought that the whole kidnapping thing was kind of, because you see this where someone in the family commits the crime and then they run out there and blame somebody else. Remember the mom who drove her car into the lake with the two kids in the back? And everybody's talking about, I think she even said it was like a black guy or something like that, took her kids. And meanwhile, the whole time she drove the car into the lake and killed them. So originally, I was thinking this was probably somebody in the family and they were making this all up. But now I see this, I go, oh my goodness, this was organized. This was professional with quotes. So there could be money on the line. Then they mess up the ransom note and all that stuff. But it gives me hope. It gives me hope that she might still be alive. So continue to pray for Savannah Guthrie, her mother, Nancy Guthrie, and the ability of the family to get this back. We'll keep you updated on all the latest. We got You Choose the News coming up. Plus, we're going to debate ICE walkouts in schools, a moment of patriotic, civic responsibility, or just another example of progressive schools indoctrinating their kids against Donald Trump. We'll get into that coming up in the next hour. Plus, Turning Point USA's president at Adams State University is going to join us as they have been denied a chapter, an official chapter at Adams State University, a public university, accepting tax dollars. Should they be allowed to deny groups like Turning Point USA? We'll get into that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, New York Times retracting their position on legalized marijuana. Lots to cover and discuss. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. This is where you hear both sides. We are The Jeff and Bill Show.
Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show. Breaking news that we're going to continue to follow, but we're getting text messages from folks about this, so I at least want to acknowledge it. Thank you, Brad from Parker. The Federal Aviation Administration is closing the airspace around El Paso International Airport in Texas for the next 10 days, grounding all flights to and from the airport. A notice posted on the FAA's website said the temporary flight restrictions were for security reasons, but did not provide details. The closure does not include Mexican airspace. The airport said in an Instagram post that all flights to and from the airport would be grounded from late Tuesday through late on February 20th, including commercial, cargo, and general aviation flights.
Yeah, that's everything. Nothing goes in, nothing goes out.
Comments on this are saying it may have to do with military operations, possibly in the Middle East. Who knows? But we'll continue to follow this as this is breaking news. But with the pivot of all pivots, now is time for Bill Thorpe and a little fun.
Yes, it's time for America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. Yes, I have spent just moments this morning scouring the interwebs. Oh, it took me maybe a whole 2 minutes and to find, because we do a lot of silly stuff. So I find really ridiculous stories about us humans, give them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why would we waste valuable radio airtime this early in the morning? Well, because those in charge do not have an alarm that goes off until 7. So once we found out that we were left fully unsupervised, no, you better believe we're taking full advantage of it. As always, Blake Olson joins us from the news department. Jeff's in the studio. Gentlemen, here are today's headlines. Headline number 1, healthy recommendations. Headline number 2, just hold it. Headline number 3, offensive name. And headline number 4, a Bo Jackson collectible. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Oh, Bo Jackson.
Yes, Bo Jackson collectible. Hey, if you're in town, maybe you should go catch the Texas Rangers game on May 29th. They are giving away an amazing throwback jersey, one of the best memories of Bo Jackson's career. Well, I might have added that last time. See, you may remember back in September of 1990, a game where the Texas Rangers are taking on the Kansas City Royals. Star outfielder Bo Jackson steps up at the plate. There's the flamethrower, Nolan Ryan, on the mound. He winds up. Whoosh, there goes the ball, and smack! Bo Jackson makes contact, and then smack again. The ball goes right into Ryan's face. Ryan, unfazed, grabs the ball and throws Jackson out at first. Now, the ball opened up a 2-inch gash in his lip, one that required 6 stitches after the game, but he's not sitting down for nothing. He wiped off that blood, rubbed some dirt on it, and he kept pitching. Yeah. Right. And now on May 29th, the Texas Rangers are honoring that very jersey by doing a throwback that includes the blood on the front of it.
It's awesome.
Yes. So there is a fake blood stain on the front of the throwback jersey that will be given out May 29th at the Texas Rangers game, honoring that
whoever
day.
came up with that idea deserves a raise.
I want that jersey so bad just because of what it is. It's so good. Yeah.
2 tough guys, by the way. Both those guys, tough and likable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Old school heroes.
I think it's fantastic. I love that idea.
I just love that when Nolan Ryan started pitching, he was also, I think, like a roofing salesman. It was only a part-time job for him to play baseball at the beginning of his career.
That's wonderful.
Those were the old days.
I love that. So May 29th, if you want to make that jersey down there, I don't know, it's got to be got to be probably the first 10,000 or so to get in there. So make some plans. But again, that would be a jersey to have. Okay. Now, Blake, your choice, sir. Yep. Healthy recommendations, just hold it, or offensive name.
Let's stay healthy.
Yeah, it's got to have some healthy recommendations. The Department of Health and Human Services is going to help you make sure you get all the nutrition you need. They've just unveiled a brand new AI chatbot that is going to give you so many recommendations about nutrition, the best things to put in your mouth, and maybe the best things to put into other orifices in your body too. Yes, the AI chatbot at the Health and Human Services is just a back-end connection to Grok. And we've seen Grok do all sorts of strange stuff recently. So the Health Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy's new Junior's website specifically will give you great examples and recommendations onto food you should be inserting into your rear end.
Great.
Yes, people
Is
have
that
done.
why you said back end?
Exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. See, they will even tell you about when exactly in the ripeness of the banana life cycle you should choose to do that, and also how to peel the carrot, shaping it for direct size and insertion, and even the idea of making sure you take the skin off of a large squash.
Wow.
Again, these were just people that were out there. These are media geeks, not media geeks, but they're tech geeks. And they were going out there to think, hey, wait a minute, this AI bot seems like it's just going back into Grok. Since Grok does some weird stuff, how many weird things will it do? The funny thing is this Health and Human Services new AI chatbot will even give you diagrams telling you exactly how you need to peel the vegetables before placing them in certain areas. We're not saying this is a recommendation, nor is it necessarily nutritious. But again, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have outsourced the AI. It's just kind of a weird thing, that the outsourcing. All right.
Kind of.
I know. Okay, Jeff, final choice this morning, sir. Just hold it or offensive name?
Offensive name.
Yes, a very offensive name. Here, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Welsh Club of Wrexham. Yes, owned partly by Ryan Reynolds. But recently, when Wrexham was playing a game, the visiting fans from Millwall refused to drink at a pub. Now, in English soccer, there is a designated visitors bar. You're told if you're traveling to see the team, here's where you're welcome. They set things up for you. They're expecting you, everything else like that. And you do that, yeah. And they tell the fans, they say, here's where you go. Well, in the town of Wrexham, it is the Ironworks on Town Hill. Problem is, when the Millwall fans showed up, they said, no, I ain't going anywhere near any place called the Ironworks. I'm not setting a foot inside that place. Why? Well, the fierce rival of Millwall is West Ham, and their nickname is the Irons. There's no way a self-respecting Millwall fan was going to walk into a place that was giving honor to their heated rivals. So they went and they found a bar that referenced Millwall. Yeah. That's how soccer fans do. All righty, that's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, Jeff.
All right, coming up in the next hour, we'll debate should schools be allowing students to participate in ice out protests. Not going to want to miss this. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in the Springs.